Today we're going to take a look at the importance of creating great customer experiences on your websites and how we can use content to really delight those customers and essentially drive revenue on the bottom line. Now, for those of you that don't know Zmags, we exist to challenge the process that currently exists between content creation and publication. We have a platform called Creator, which allows brands to create rich, engaging content quickly and easily, and then publish directly to their websites without the need to write a single line of code or any development. If you want any more information at Zmags, or alternatively, just drop us a note, hello@zmags.com, and we can send over the slide deck from today as well. So before we get into the thick of it, I want to start by first defining an experience. So this is something we all know, but just a bit of a recap. So an experience is an event or an occurrence which leaves an impression on somebody. But it's also a feeling, and that's really important. It's an emotion, a sensation. And over the course of today, what we'll do is we'll take a look at how content can help us leverage both sides of that definition to allow us to encourage customers through that journey with us and to help us to build an ongoing relationship with those customers. Experience is something that people are really seeking out these days. 78% of millennials are actually spending their money on desirable experiences or events as opposed to actually buying something desirable. We don't necessarily own our own houses anymore. We don't necessarily own our own cars. I mean, I don't think I'll own a house until I'm about 50 at this rate, but that's neither here nor there. But instead, we're doing Ironmans, we're going to Glastonbury, we're snorkeling with whale sharks, if that's the type of thing you want to do. And that's being shown in this spending growth in non-essential categories. Over the last few years, that's gone up 22%, which I think speaks volumes. And brands are starting to pick up on that as well. You look at somebody like Macy's, Lululemon here in the UK, introducing yoga classes in their shops. Under Armour, Nike, Rafa, all have sports clubs and events that they organize. We have an app for Nike, Nike Run Club. Capital One have a coffee shop. I'm not entirely sure how that works. I'll have a skinny latte, please. There you go, sir. Now let's talk about your credit rating. But apparently it does. And what that's doing is it's allowing people to create those emotional connections to those brands, really start to build that relationship. But this isn't something new. Who remembers planograms from shops? When we've got our retail stores, we are so particular about how we lay them out. We use planograms to make sure we use the space as best as possible, reduce dead space, twin that with the lighting in the room, the music, the artwork, the visuals, even the smell. And then what you're doing is exactly the same thing, creating that experience for a customer. I don't know if anybody else in here remembers when Abercrombie first opened and Savile Row went in there. That was an experience. You walk past the two really muscular guys on the front door, all right? Get inside, it's almost pitch black, spotlights on the products, the music's so loud that you can't hear your friends, and they're pumping Abercrombie Fierce, the aftershave, through the, whatever it was, the aircon system or whatever. I bought 4 bottles of that stuff. It was immense. But that's an experience. You go into college the next day and you're all talking about it with your mates over lunch. Did you go to Abercrombie? And that's why there were queues around the street. So when it actually comes to purchasing, we make those decisions in emotion, but very rarely do we actually admit that they're emotive decisions. Often we'll back them up and pretend they were based in logic. There was a sale on, got a wedding in 2 years, something like that. My dad's favorite one is, it's a piece of equipment. All right, Dad, but you paid 50 quid because it said Black & Decker on it. So we make those decisions in emotion. And by doing this, we build up that rapport with our customers. 95% of people consider themselves to be loyal to brands that they like, whilst 83% of people said they like it when brands take a public stance for or against issues that they believe in. And there's not really much that's more emotional than your belief system. So, key takeaway number 1, if you didn't know, experience is important. And it really is. So that's why I often find it quite interesting when I look at shop flows on websites and I see that they're all very similar. And it's, for the lack of better words, it can be quite stale, quite sterile, quite boring. We drive a customer onto the home page. We then take them to the category page, subcategory page, product detail page, whatever. But it's lacking content. There's not really an opportunity during that process to start having that conversation with the customer, to start building that relationship, to start getting that emotional connection. And something that has always interested me as well is I've always seen, since I've worked in the industry, is that it seems as though there's almost a bit of a box-ticking exercise in marketing. So you've got your SEO, you've got your PPC, you've got your email campaigns, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's quite rare that I see that those are actually connected to what's going on the site. Here we've got a couple of examples. You can picture it, can't you? You're flicking through your Instagram. Instagram does its thing, surfaces this skirt that it thinks you're going to like. Great, yeah, that skirt will look lovely on me. So you click on the button, and we're just brought through to a relatively standard page. It's not particularly exciting. It doesn't continue that conversation. On the right, you see an email campaign. Again, inviting. People want to look at it. People want to click through the links. But again, being taken through to that very flat, pretty uninteresting category page. Now, compare that to something like this. So this is True Religion. And what they've done, you'll see on the left-hand side is a Facebook post. We're on Facebook, we get surfaced with this picture of this fellow in the hoodie. We think, yeah, that's a bit of me. So we click on it and we're taken through to a landing page. But what you'll notice is on that landing page, we're seeing similar language, we're seeing a repetition of the images, and it's more of a lifestyle piece. It's continuing that conversation from social. When we're on the internet and we're trying to kill time, we're just entertaining ourselves, what are we doing? We're on the news, we're on our social media, we're engaging with content. So why not take that over to your website, continue that conversation, give people things that they want to fill their time with, increase the amount of time they're spending on your site. But also what we're doing there as well is we're giving them the ability to shop from that piece of content as well. And this is key. What we don't want to do is we don't want to be ramming things down people's throats necessarily, but give them the ability to shop and let them choose how they want to interact with that content. And then, fingers crossed, they go on and purchase on the far right-hand side. Happy days. So here's another example, and this is something that I think is really quite nice. So you'll see on the left-hand side, we've got a sort of typical search journey. Somebody's typed in throw pillows, and SEO has pulled up the first result there. We click through to that, and as expected, we land on a category page. And on that category page, we see pillows. Excellent. Now, what's different here, however, is that they've injected some content into that category page, made it a little bit more interesting. Now, if somebody's Googled throw pillows, chances are they don't have much of an idea about what type of throw pillow they want. Apparently, it's a big thing. We've got about 40 pillows on our bed at the moment. It takes about 3 hours to get them off. But yeah, so as opposed to surfacing 1,000 pillows to somebody, let's give them the opportunity to go through to an experience that's going to narrow down that category range. So if we were to click on that, we would get taken through to the pillow finder, which is great. So we have the 3 steps. Set your foundation with your pillows. And this is, you can write this down. You can take this for free. Set your foundation with your pillows, add texture, and then make it pop. Then you've got yourself some throw pillows. And you can see here, as we scroll down, we've got the ability to mix and match our pillows. And then as we sort of progress through the experience, you'll see that it's been broken down to show different styles of interior design, different decors, that sort of thing. And what they've done is they have pulled items into that match that look and feel. So as opposed to showing somebody thousands of pillows, we're showing them ones that are going to be more relevant to them. And then again, we fire a quick view directly from there, and it's straight into the basket. Now, this is really important because as human beings, if we have too much choice, it can actually deter a purchase. Let's look at the old saying, it's like a kid in a sweet shop. It quite easily deter us from actually buying anything. I mean, I've had a £200 Amazon voucher since July because I'm just not sure what to spend it on. Amazon scares me. And actually going further than just deterring a purchase, it can actually remove some of the satisfaction that we get from a purchase. You might buy a dress and go, well, did I buy the right dress? Should I have got the one that was slightly cheaper? Should I have gone for red? Etc. So what's really important when we're creating those experiences is to do our best to try and direct people in the direction of things that are going to work for them. So here's another example. from True Religion of blending content into those category pages. Now, this is slightly different to what we saw beforehand. What we've got here is similar journey, search, taken through to the category page, but then we've actually got some dynamic content in the category. So you can see here, we can look at this nice image of a model and then actually buy the clothes directly from her. And another great example here is Godiva. So in the US, they realized that graduation and Father's Day are two events that actually fall at very, very similar times. Now, they identify that people are going to be Googling graduation gifts, chocolate, or something like that. So they use that as an opportunity to direct people to a nice landing page that then also has gifts for Father's Day at the same time. And what they're doing there as well is they're making use of quick views so they're not interrupting that customer journey. What they're doing is allowing people to add that to their basket, but then go on to continue the conversation that they're having. Now, it's important to keep content concise when we're building those experiences. Not necessarily going over the top, keep it directed at what we want to achieve from it, and make it snackable. Snackable content. And that's because we literally have no attention span. So in a recent poll, students were asked what they thought their attention span was. And they came back with 5 minutes. Can anybody hazard a guess at what the actual time is? Say again? 10 seconds. And a bit more? A minute. 31 seconds. That is the average attention span of a student. And we're not enormously better. Adults came in at 3 minutes. But if we consider that, and we consider that 3 minutes is your max with somebody, you need to make sure that they're engaging with you and that they're going to enjoy that content that you're surfacing to them. Moving on to the other side of the house, how do we speak to customers that know us? People that have perhaps shopped with us before, people on our email lists. So this is an example from the US. If you're into knitting, this will be right up your street. So these guys, you'll see on the left-hand side, one of their email campaigns, they make a lookbook every week of sort of different knitting patterns and things you can make. So if you wanted to dress your child up as a bag of chips, or your dog as a hot dog with pockets, then there you go. So what's cool about this as well is they are directing their existing customers to these pages, but then it's not just a case of having one call to action. For each one of these designs, they've got 2 calls to action, which is quite nice to see. So we can either go ahead and buy the wool to make these excellent things, or alternatively, we can go ahead and buy the designs. And it's really, really cool, and it works really well. Because what we want to be doing with content is not going back to that sort of tick box scenario, our SEO, PPC, etc. We don't want to be going, yes, I've created one piece of content, high five, yeah, pat on the back, we've done content, cheers. And then leave it in some obscure area of our website that no one's ever going to find. What we want to do is we want to be creating content regularly and create a hub on our site that people can access that content and people can engage with it on their own terms at the same time. These guys, Hush, here in the UK, do a really, really good job of that. They have an entire section of their website called Style Stories, where they will just create content and publish really regularly so that when people come on the website, they're greeted with different pieces of content to interact with. And this is something that you can do on your website. I'm sure you've got blogs, lifestyle areas, inspiration sections, all that sort of stuff. But the key is to make it as regular as possible so we can keep driving those experiences. Now, I think oftentimes what I see is people say, well, we can't do it very regularly because creating content takes time. It's quite an arduous process. It involves a lot of coding, development work. My developers are working on making sure that my website runs efficiently. We don't have the people in the team to create content that often. And that's fine. That's where we step in. So yeah, that is the key takeaway there. Just keep making it regular. And by making it regular, we ensure that people don't get any dead ends. What we don't want is we don't want to be having a conversation with somebody and then go, nothing else to say. Drive people through that content funnel, but then give them the opportunity to go on and discover more. Let them know about your brand. We touched on it earlier on. Creating that emotional connection with a customer is so important. It will keep them coming back time and time again. So why not use that as an opportunity to continue that conversation, tell them more about yourself, introduce yourself to people. It's really powerful. This is Anushka. And on most of their email campaigns, they'll have a link, Meet Anushka. We click on that, we go through to this nice video, and we get to know a little bit about the lady behind the brand. And then as we scroll down through the page, we get introduced to some other members of the team. Now, like we said earlier on, having brands that align with our belief system is a really powerful and really emotive way to connect with people. And as we scroll down and we click through these different people, and we choose one of the members of the team, we come down and we see that there's some simple questions, whatever is a favorite type of jewelry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then sort of touching on what we were discussing earlier, give people the opportunity to shop from there, but don't necessarily push it in their face. You know, they want to interact with your content in their own way. So as we scroll down here, you'll see in a moment, we actually have the ability to shop all of the jewelry that's being worn in this edit. Now, it is getting towards that time. I'm sure most of us have spent the last 6 months preparing for Christmas and Black Friday. I can't actually believe it's nearly here. But I thought, as I was up here, we would have a quick chat about Christmas and how we can really use this period and the increased footfall that we see on our websites during this time to start having those conversations. Holidays are stressful. On average, shoppers see a 33% increase in their heart rate when doing Christmas shopping. 33%. For those of you who don't know, that is the same increase you get when running a marathon. I mean, I did London this year, and I'd say it was far more than 33%. But I found that really interesting. 88% of people experience tachycardia when doing Christmas shopping. Sounds worse than it is, just basically when your heart rate goes over 100. And 88% of people classified Christmas shopping as extremely intense. So how can we be there to help them through that process? We had a look earlier on at choice paralysis. It's hard enough to buy stuff for yourself, let alone trying to buy for somebody else. So as we're having these conversations, how can we help people along that route? Here's a great example from Godiva. You know, they took that on board and they were thinking, right, okay, so how can we help people with their gift purchases? So they created this quiz. It's very simple. We click through. We get asked some high-level questions about the person we're buying for, what's your price range, et cetera, et cetera. And it's essentially a decision tree. So it takes us to a selection of items that meet the criteria that have been specified by those questions. And that's just quite entertaining. It's an entertaining way of reducing that product range into something that those people are actually going to want. And also, like we said, it's a great way to introduce yourself to the brand. And then again, we have the ability to quick view from there and not actually interrupt that journey. This was so well received that they actually had to introduce this take the quiz again button because people just kept wanting to take the quiz and see what the outcomes would be. So who am I to judge? And also, it's a great time to continue to create those developing relationships that are going to last past Christmas as well. Because, let's face it, we're not just buying for other people. We spend quite a lot of time buying for ourselves during this period as well. 77% of people take advantage of the holiday deals for themselves, and the average amount spent on ourselves is $132. So, plug time. On the left, I'm sure some of you can recognize this. This is what we at Zmags see as the typical content creation and retail process. So we start off with the marketing e-com content teams, whoever's in charge of that side of thing, creating the idea for the content, storyboarding, gathering assets, et cetera, et cetera. And then we sort of have to have that conversation and look at the development of that content. And we touched on this earlier on. It takes a lot of time, but we ought to be creating this content regularly. And then eventually we get to the point of release. And we're finding that that takes usually, days, weeks, months to create even some simple content. Now, our creative platform at Zmags steps in to remove that development piece in the middle. As I mentioned to you before, it's a one-stop area where you guys can come on, create dynamic, engaging content, and then publish it directly to your website without the need to write a single line of code. Now, I'm more than happy to chat to anybody about that in more detail. I'm here. I've got a couple of my guys, James, Jack, and Dan in the audience here as well, so I'm more than happy to speak to you about any of your content needs or challenges after this, or alternatively over lunch or whatever. So come and find us, and we'll have a sit down. So to summarize, when it comes to content, content is key to creating that rich digital experience on your website. Content is also like a tree falling in a forest. Someone's got to be there to hear it. So, like I said, let's not hide it in the corners and the depths of our website. Let's make it really easy for people to find and for people to digest. Inject content into the journey. Don't just sit there and go, right, okay, well, this is the norm. We have this typical e-commerce process. You know, change it up. Add some content in. Inject that life into that process. Think about it as though it were your shop floor. Would you do it any differently? But make sure that that content adds value. Don't just put content in for the sake of it. Make sure it adds value and allow people to interact with that content in the way that they see fit. And lastly, use technology to scale up your content efforts. Thank you very much.